Once one of the richest countries in Latin America, Venezuela was a nation full of promise, sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves and offering its citizens a high standard of living. In the mid-20th century, Caracas boasted modern infrastructure, thriving businesses, and a growing middle class. But today, the country is a cautionary tale of how even resource-rich nations can collapse under poor governance and economic mismanagement. How did Venezuela go from wealth and stability to hyperinflation, food shortages, power blackouts, and mass migration? The story begins with the country's over-reliance on oil. For decades, Venezuela's economy was fueled almost entirely by oil exports, which made up the majority of government revenue. When oil prices were high, governments spent lavishly on social programs, subsidies, and infrastructure projects, creating the illusion of prosperity. This reliance on oil, however, masked deeper structural weaknesses. The economy was not diversified, industries were neglected, and the country had no safety net for a drop in oil prices. In 1999, Hugo Chávez came to power, promising to end inequality and improve life for the poor. Chávez was initially popular for his charisma and bold social programs. He nationalized key industries, implemented strict price and currency controls, and expanded welfare initiatives. While these policies initially reduced poverty and provided access to healthcare and education for many, they also slowly eroded economic productivity. Private businesses faced heavy taxation, strict regulations, and confiscation threats, leading many to close or move operations abroad. Price controls made producing basic goods unprofitable, which led to chronic shortages of food, medicine, and other essentials. Citizens had to wait in long lines for basic products, while black markets flourished to meet demand. Corruption became widespread, and many government officials exploited the system for personal gain. As Chávez's policies entrenched, Venezuela's economic resilience weakened, leaving the country extremely vulnerable to external shocks. That vulnerability became painfully clear after 2014, when global oil prices plummeted. With oil revenues drying up, Venezuela had no financial buffer, no diversified economy, and massive debts to pay. Under Nicolás Maduro, who succeeded Chávez, the government resorted to printing money at an unprecedented pace to cover expenses. This triggered hyperinflation, which spiraled out of control. Prices doubled and tripled within weeks, making salaries virtually worthless and forcing people to carry stacks of bills just to buy bread or milk. The currency collapsed, banks struggled to operate, and everyday life became a daily struggle for survival. Sanctions from the United States and other nations, intended to pressure the government politically, worsened the crisis by restricting access to foreign markets, loans, and critical imports. While sanctions intensified the economic collapse, it is important to note that the foundation for disaster was laid long before, through years of mismanagement and corruption. The human cost of Venezuela's economic collapse has been staggering. Hospitals operate without essential medicines, power outages are common, and citizens struggle to access clean water and nutritious food. Poverty rates have skyrocketed, and malnutrition affects a large portion of the population. Faced with unbearable living conditions, over 7 million Venezuelans have fled the country, creating one of the largest migration crises in modern history, with neighboring countries like Colombia, Brazil, and Peru absorbing millions of refugees. Children often leave school to work, families are separated, and social stability is deeply eroded. The collapse has affected every layer of society, demonstrating that economic mismanagement has consequences far beyond statistics and GDP numbers. Venezuela's story is not just about politics or ideology. It is about how the combination of resource dependency, corruption, weak institutions, and poor decision-making can destroy a nation's economy. It also serves as a cautionary tale for other countries that rely heavily on a single resource without investing in diversification or strong governance. Despite its oil wealth, Venezuela lacked the institutional framework, economic foresight, and political accountability necessary to sustain prosperity. The consequences continue to unfold. And while some hope remains that reforms and international cooperation could help stabilize the country, recovery will be slow and challenging. The lessons from Venezuela are clear. Natural resources alone cannot guarantee wealth or stability. An unchecked power combined with economic mismanagement can bring even the richest nations to their knees. For the world, Venezuela is a stark reminder that economic planning, Diversification and strong institutions are essential for long-term stability, and that ignoring these fundamentals can have catastrophic consequences. It is also a story of human resilience. Despite facing extreme hardship, Venezuelans continue to adapt, survive, and in many cases, work to rebuild their lives both inside and outside the country. The tragedy of Venezuela is a story of ambition turned to failure, wealth squandered, and a nation forced to confront the harsh consequences of policy choices. As we look at Venezuela today, it is impossible not to ask, could this happen elsewhere, even in countries with abundant resources? The Venezuelan collapse challenges us to understand how fragile prosperity can be when institutions fail. Leaders mismanage resources, and society becomes dependent on short-term fixes rather than sustainable development. Ultimately, Venezuela's experience is a sobering lesson for economists, policymakers, and citizens alike. Wealth is fleeting without responsible governance, and the human cost of economic disaster is measured not just in numbers but in lives disrupted, families displaced, and futures lost. By examining Venezuela's rise and fall, we gain insight into the importance of strong institutions, diversified economies, and prudent leadership, and we are reminded that no nation is immune to collapse if the foundations of prosperity are ignored.